Hello. Yeah, sorry, this is my second time recording it. First time I was connected to my headphones, and you picked up no audio. Hopefully this time it works out. Yeah. So for the documentary formula, it really breaks the standard. At least from my perspective, it did. I've seen quite a few documentaries as a kid. I wasn't really allowed to watch too much like TV, but documentaries were, you know, free game. So I used to watch a zillion of them back in the day. Shark Week was like the closest I used to get to a lot of stuff. Like to any TV, Shark Week was about as good as it got. But it really broke the mold in a lot of ways, especially with its reach. It felt much more impactful to me than any documentary that I can really recall. Like, I've seen a zillion documentaries, and there's not really one that I can point to, if that makes sense. Like, I could probably name a few, but there's not really one that's honestly had any real impact on me. Um, like, they just are almost always really surface level. Like, especially like this one with the break from the interviews. I think that could have been one of the reasons why it was more impactful for me in a positive way, or at least deeper. Like, I guess tugged on some heartstrings in ways that others haven't. Like, I've seen other documentaries that really effectively document the like death and destruction that climate change causes, or that other things cause. So like that aspect of this wasn't super unique, but the way in which they showed it was like he didn't focus on the, I guess, like the science. He just kind of focused on the story. Like, it felt much more like storytelling than documenting, or maybe more of documenting than storytelling. Like, almost the narrative wrote itself, and there wasn't really a narrative to begin with. It was just kind of, he just showed what it was, and then narrated him experiencing it, and like his own perception of it. And it just, something about that cut deeper. It's hard for me to put into words, but it just felt very different from other documentaries. Like, if I were to compare this to the one that we watched, I think 2 weeks ago now. Sorry, I'm a bit fuzzy with dates. Regarding like the permafrost leaving, sea levels rising, and a few other things. Like, just a few of the ones that I mentioned in my video, and had all the solutions like the netting over windows and similar stuff to that. Even though that one was also about a similar subject and showed a lot of the similar imagery, it just was nowhere near as impactful. It didn't seem as personal. Like, you could tell that this guy really cared. Like, especially in the like, it must have been about around the hour mark in, where you see the scene of him cutting open the dead albatross, the baby, and pulling out all the plastic, and then he leans into it and cries, and it really, like, it almost brought me to tears. Like, it was just a level of emotion that shows that he really cared about it, and wasn't really afraid to show that he cared about it, which some of the other documentaries kind of seem to do in some ways. So that really made it just cut a lot deeper. I think he broke from the mold in a really good way. That at least for my its impression on me was much deeper than the other documentaries were. Like, the other ones, their impression on me is pretty surface level in general. Like most documentaries that I'll see, or even pieces of media regarding climate change or really anything. But this really definitely went beyond the surface level in ways that others have kind of struggled to achieve. For the second thing, I'll go for the albatross as an archetypal messenger. Like, what makes it uniquely suited to carry the message of love. Um, for me, a lot of it was like one aspect was like the dance, and the fact that they mate for life. Like, to me, any species that mates for life, I don't know if it's like anthropomorphizing it, or, like projecting yourself onto it, or your own emotions, wants, and needs, and all that. But it just like it I don't want to say another level of intelligence, because I know that we can't really measure intelligence, or at least our perspective of intelligence to me seems a little bit wrong. I know we used to go off brain size, and they're like, oh, other things have bigger brains, so we go brain to body, and oh, other things have better ratios, so we keep moving the goalposts so that we're always winning. But stuff that kind of mates for life seems to, at least to me, be on another peg, I guess. Like I've been around a lot of animals. Um, I've always been hiking in the woods, watching, trying to learn what I can. And a lot of animals that seem to mate for life always, to me, seem to stick out, like eagles, for example. Like coming year after year to build up their nest. And it's kind of like, I can, as a human, kind of relate to that a little bit, Like year after year building up your relationship with something to make it deeper and more real. So I kind of understood that in the albatross, like with their dance slowly getting more and more in rhythm. There's something about that that just made it much more impactful to me. I don't know if that's the the answer that you're looking for, but and how the film be different if the birds filled with plastic were ducks or seagulls. Yeah, there's something about the albatross that has like a level of like mystique and I guess like nobleness to it, or humanity, whatever you want to call it. But like in those shots where it's walking and looking at the camera, it just feels so relatable and human. Like its facial expressions, and you see it talking to its young, singing to its young, and all those aspects. And there's also something about like the the little segment when it's still yet to hatch, and one sits on the egg through everything and just waits while the other partner's out to sea, not knowing if it's gonna come back, sitting for weeks, days, through storms, through it all. There's just something about, I don't know, the unique cycle that's just kind of relatable or more real. I don't really know what it is. But it's not just me. I know a lot of people have that, even historically. Like, for some context, my family comes from a lot of like fishermen and boat builder. So like my dad was a fisherman for 30 years. My grandfather was a fisherman, grew up on the shipyard. My great grandfather was a fisherman, worked and operated a shipyard. Great grandfather, it just keeps going. And so I was raised on a lot of like nautical stories, a lot of books that my dad had me read as a kid. It's like The Old Man in the Sea, Kon-Tiki, and 1,000 other books. And a lot of them, the albatross was like a symbol, and it was like always kind of set apart. Like I remember there was this one where these guys they were marooned at sea. They're like shipwrecked, and starving, drinking seawater, eating everything they can. I think they maybe like cannibalism or something, but they wouldn't eat the albatross because it was kind of like above them, or had some mystique and significance. So there's just something about it as a medium that's just more effective. Like when I saw like the images of the albatross, like the dead albatross with the plastic, like rotted out, and just the plastic and bones left. It was much more impactful than when you see it in other animals. I don't necessarily know why, but it definitely was. And I think as a butchered the word, as an archetypal messenger, it's just much more effective because it's just more relatable, real. And I know intelligence isn't the right word to use, at least I don't think it is, but it seems to have like a higher level of understanding, I think, compared to other birds. At least I can understand its understanding better than I can other birds and creatures. Thank you. Video's getting a little too long. I think I could ramble on about this for an hour or two and still not really get my thoughts across. Yeah, I hope I got close. Thank you.